All right, welcome to this unboxing video. We have the Parth Impex multi-patterned pack of aged autumn design stationery paper. I thought it was kind of cool, and it would be kind of a different twist on scenic stamping with these lines in here. It might provide kind of a cool graphic element. We have these I don't know, whatever, pattern designs, and there's 8 of them, and the pack is a 56 pack, so not, we're gonna have like 100 of the same pattern, which is kind of nice, and, there's so many of these different patterns that we should have a nice kind of selection to choose from. So let's see what we have here. So I bought a couple different packs, one of them being this autumn pack that I thought would be pretty cool to test out. I've been enjoying doing these pre-printed background paper scenes. It's kind of provides me with a different challenge that I've had throughout my stamping life, I guess. And I don't know, it provides kind of a quick solution to your limited time stamping needs. If you have limited time to stamp something from start to completion, at least you can always kind of extend some sort of project over multiple days if you need to. Let me see how many there is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We should be one more here. So far, so good. It looks pretty cool. When I'm looking at this type of thing online, I'm looking at just a small thumbnail of them. You can expand them a little bit to get the gist of what the papers are about, but until you get something kind of in hand, it's kind of hard to tell, the scale of things, and to get a really good feel of it, at least for me. Okay, let's see what these are. Okay, these are double-sided and lined on one side and open on the other. I didn't know about that. I thought it was all lined, so I said 8 different patterns. It might be 16 different patterns, and that is really going to be spectacular as far as our usage goes. Okay, so what we have here are these elements that I see as being foreground elements, at least in terms of the scale that we're typically working with in the Stampscapes line of imagery. You have a leaf this size, it's going to be fairly close to us. I don't have leaves that are like the size of my hand or something like that that would dwarf these pieces. So I see this as, a foreground type of element. So on something like this, now I'm usually not working 8.5 by 11, so I'm really looking at these as more like half-page pieces where I'll cut them down like this. I guess you can do it slimline and go vertical. I don't see that happening with most of these, I don't think, okay? But I look at the darkest elements in here in terms of kind of a reference for what I would stamp my imagery in. Let's say this is going to be some sort of overhanging, I don't know, what do you call it, a swag or something like that? I forgot. But if I cut this in half like this, and I can put like a cabin or something like this right in this corner right here, or a stream or something like that, I think that would be pretty cool. I can see a little boy with a, with a fishing pole or rod or something like that. Or you can go way distant in here with like a cove, like the Lakeside Cove or something like that. And you can put like someone in a little boat or like a little loon or something like that down here. And I would stamp them out probably in black with this one right here, because I usually, if this is going to be the foreground right here, things in the foreground are usually darker. Now I can add darker elements in here in black, okay, which would open up the usage of blacks in the background. And when I say that, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but usually things in the foreground are a little bit darker than things in the distance because, you know, things in the distance, you're looking through light reflecting off distant objects, and by the time it gets to your eye, it's going through different sediment in the air, you know, and bouncing off that, light bounces off that. So things in the distance are usually lighter. But that's getting technical, a little bit more technical like that. So yeah, this would be a really cool composition right here. It's almost like rule of thirds. You know, you put something right down here, and this would provide a pretty dramatic, you know, foreground right here. And it would bring your viewer's eye, right to those objects right here. We have some hanging branches like that. So in terms of kind of the visual path of a scene, you know, you would follow this and follow it right down to your main subject, or your kind of eventual visual landing spot. If I cut this down like that, we would have this part right here, okay? And this would be a really great foreground down here. You could put things out here in the distance and it would be illuminated, and you'd have these objects kind of pointing up at it. This right here is kind of organic enough where I could see that being used as like a, you know, a water pattern or something of that sort. Or you can have it like this, where this provides kind of an overhang. And I could put landscaping elements down here. It could be land or it could be water. I think, again, it's kind of loose enough with this kind of this S-curving type of form down here, where this could be kind of a water element. And then you can add in some other types of foregrounds down here to kind of anchor the lower portion. Well, let's just see. I was originally thinking about this for these line pieces. I think those lined elements can provide a pretty cool graphic element to it. You can stamp, you know, some pieces down here and then stamp your quote stamp kind of right along those lines like that. I think that would be pretty cool. You can stamp out a quote stamp in, you know, kind of a lavender tone or something of that sort. Speaking of colors, you know, when I would stamp something into these pieces right here, I would probably go with, I would pick out some different color schemes to add shadow work into my pieces. I wouldn't just stamp in black and just leave it at that. You could, but typically what you would do is you would stamp something and embellish. You can add shadows and things like that with a similar colors or similar colors out of the color scheme in the piece. So something like that would probably be really good in terms of providing our shadow work within this space right here. This one right here really gets really full with a lot of different foreground elements in here. So maybe something like this, I would have a kind of this swag hanging down this way and have like some kind of element down here. I see this as being like water. I think that would be really cool just to have some sort of, you know, a distant type of shoreline right in here. Or you could bring it up closer where it's a much smaller pond and put, you know, a loon or a crane or something like that, egret, something like that down in this. This one almost kind of follows this. It almost has this kind of watery, greenish blue type of patterning in here. Or you can get really bold. I see this as like being like a cliffside right here. You can stamp, you know, your ledge or something like this down here, like that. And then you can sneak in some other things, like say this is like a lake down here, and it's a very narrow one, but you can put like a little character down here in a canoe or a kayak or something of that sort. This one's like the opposite right here on the opposite side. It's really kind of a little bit more minimal, which I guess it would have to be because it has these lines in here. You see, you need space to write or print on here through your, I don't know, your laser inkjet printer. I'm getting mesmerized by these pieces, just trying to think of what I can do with these. This is kind of a cool patterning in here. This one right here, though, I mean, is that evocative right there? You can have these leaves like that. I would probably have this one coming up from below like that, though. It's a lot more two-dimensional. It doesn't have like this deep space in here because there's these textures like this is like against a wall right here. So you might be able to do something. Of course, whatever you stamp on here, it's going to change that because you're going to be covering up, you know, this kind of texturing in here. But just this glow here alone would be, you know, provide for a nice foundation for some other type of scene. That's a beautiful type of pattern right there, isn't it? Those leaves. You kind of have that overhanging. I guess you can go vertical like this and have things like this and have these vertical lines, but I don't know. It seems to be, I don't know, just from a reference point, having these kind of horizontal like this might make more sense. And interesting thing about this is when you're stamping some sort of quote stamping here, you might stamp it in red, you know, to match the lines or something like that. It might be kind of cool. Really nice atmosphere in here in terms of space, isn't it? Look at that glow there. This one right here, you might just keep, you know, because it's so full in here, and there's this, you know, just a natural location to stamp. Maybe you stamp something out in like cabins or something like that in there with a little person walking around here, or a deer would be perfect right here. With a cabin in the background, and maybe you stamp it in like a dark brown or something like that. Although those are like a charcoal, deep charcoal gray tone right here. I guess that's dark enough to go just with black in there. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe go darker with a black. Here again. It's a nice glow. Look at that right there. You can go like this way with objects like that. Again, it's the vertical lines though. But all of these swags kind of go naturally, you know, if you're talking about, you know, a smaller piece. Yeah, like an autumn shoreline in the background like that would be really nice. Okay, so a lot of different types of usages are coming to mind very easily when looking at these pieces. Maybe not this way, huh? I see it like this. Maybe like this. And then I'm looking at it in terms of the half. But yeah, having that nice kind of warm, rich glow in there. Something can be really rich in terms of the different tones in there. It doesn't have to have like a lot of contrast or intensity, but I think that looks really cool. A lot of real textural again, like a closer kind of wall or something like that. This would be kind of cool. I see these textures in here with like the Halloween imagery or something like that. Oh, interesting, different type of foliage here. Right now, on this one right here, it's so huge. Yeah, going 8.5 by 11. So if I'm going 8.5 by 11, usually, unless you're just framing this off, you know, in an 8.5 by 11 frame, which there's a lot of them out there. If you want to kind of mat this and give it a little bit more kind of structure and something firmer, then I would cut off maybe like an inch around the perimeter, like here and here maybe. And then you can give it like a double mat to give it a little bit more, I don't know, substance. Because, you know, we have a lot of 8.5 by 11 papers, so it'd be easy to mat that off with a, you know, an 8.5 by 11 by just cutting this down. So keep that in mind if you're going to do some type of matting around your pieces. If you're retaining, you know, as close to a full page piece as you can. And the last piece right here, beautiful. You see it going like this. These things are kind of hanging down this way, it seems like a little bit. So yeah, maybe something like this. Maybe this is the same piece as this one. Maybe I grabbed. Yeah, I think I grabbed the same piece. I thought, this looks kind of familiar here. I don't know. Anyway. Some cool, different pre-printed papers. We're going to have to do some ink tests on here, but I think my hybrid ink will be the one to use on here to get the darkest impressions. But I don't know. They should be pretty fun to work with, as long as I can, you know, get my impressions down substantially. But even sometimes on these pre-printed papers like this, even in the lighter areas, my black ink only stamps out maybe like a, I don't know, 90% gray or something like that. But these pieces, like the blacks in here, again, at darkest, they're probably about a 90%, 95% gray maybe, or something like that. So not having like true black, you know, isn't really a problem. If you use your like a VersaFine Clair or something like that, you might be able to get a little bit of a, you know, maybe the darkest impression if you're using black. And then there's all kinds of other colors of like VersaFine, but those oil-based types of pigment inks should stamp out on these pretty nicely. And then if you have those other types of colors too, you know, you have orange and gold or something like that, VersaFine, or pinks, lavenders, or something of that sort. I don't even know what their full line of colors is. I just have black. But you can kind of incorporate those into this type of scenario, which, again, could be pretty fun. Anyways, I'll get to, can't wait to try some of these out. And, yeah, look forward to seeing you in a live stream if I do it via a live stream. All right, thanks for watching.